Emily Parker was the teacher every parent trusted, the smile that lit up her classroom, but behind her cheerful facade lay a horrifying secret that would shock an entire town. Emily Parker had been teaching third grade at Willow Creek Elementary for nearly 10 years. To parents, students, and even her colleagues, she seemed like the perfect teacher. She was cheerful, patient, and always willing to go the extra mile. On school bulletin boards, photographs of smiling students holding up their art projects often featured her standing proudly beside them. The school newsletters frequently highlighted her dedication, celebrating her innovative lessons and the countless hours she spent preparing creative activities. Parents trusted her implicitly, leaving their children in her care without a second thought. She had become more than just a teacher. She was a symbol of safety and guidance in the small community. At first glance, Emily seemed completely ordinary, yet there were subtle details that some people noticed but dismissed. Her classroom was meticulously organized, every desk aligned perfectly, every book arranged by size and color. Some children whispered about strict rules and unusual routines, though most tried to avoid drawing attention to themselves. She monitored her students closely, sometimes watching them in ways that felt overly intense. Visitors noticed a quiet tension in the room, something just beneath the surface of her bright smile, but no one could quite put a finger on it. Emily's behavior outside the classroom also seemed normal. She attended school events, volunteered at local fundraisers, and maintained friendly relationships with parents. She spoke with warmth and confidence, always ready to reassure worried moms and dads. Yet, the longer people observed her, the more they realized that there was a controlling streak hidden beneath her nurturing demeanor. She liked to know everything about her students, their routines, habits, friendships, and even small disagreements. Parents admired her dedication, thinking it was evidence of her commitment. In the small town of Willow Creek, where everyone knew each other, Emily's reputation made her nearly untouchable. Children felt safe around her, classmates confided in her, and administrators often used her as an example of an ideal teacher. But safety can be deceptive, and trust can be dangerous if placed in the wrong hands. While everyone believed they knew Emily Parker, the truth lurking behind her perfectly curated life was far darker than anyone could imagine. Beneath the cheerful facade, something unsettling was building, waiting for the right moment to emerge. A secret that would shock the town to its core and forever change the way people looked at the smiling teacher at Willow Creek Elementary. It began with small, seemingly harmless incidents that slowly raised unease among students and parents. Items started disappearing from Emily Parker's classroom: pencils, erasers, notebooks, and occasionally more personal belongings like small toys or lunchboxes. At first, it seemed like ordinary school chaos. Children misplaced things all the time, and teachers often blamed forgetfulness or careless handling. Emily would announce these items as lost and found, smiling reassuringly as she returned objects to their owners. Most parents thought nothing of it, assuming it was just part of classroom life. But the pattern grew stranger. Some children hesitated to reclaim their missing items, and a few parents mentioned that their kids seemed unusually nervous about approaching Emily's desk. Teachers noticed certain students appearing tense or withdrawn during class, yet no one could pinpoint why. The incidents, while minor on the surface, began to hint at a deeper issue that nobody wanted to confront. Things escalated further when anonymous notes began appearing in students' backpacks. These notes were small and discreet, but their messages were specific and unsettling. They mentioned minor accidents, bruises, and unusual behavior in ways that only someone paying close attention could know. Parents initially assumed it was a prank or a misunderstanding, but the notes continued to arrive. Some students were visibly frightened, clutching the papers in secret or showing them only to their parents at home. The subtle sense of fear began spreading quietly through the classroom. Even the children's behavior started to change. Some stopped speaking up in class, avoided eye contact, or clung to their friends at recess. A few became withdrawn, spending long periods alone while others played nearby. Teachers attributed it to typical childhood shyness or stress, unaware that these small signs were clues pointing to something far more sinister. Meanwhile, Emily continued her routines with the same calm, cheerful demeanor. She organized lessons, handed out assignments, and praised students for good behavior. To outsiders, nothing seemed wrong, but the tension in the room was palpable. Observers who watched closely could see the subtle control she exerted over her students, the way she positioned desks, monitored every movement, and quietly corrected even the smallest mistake. The seemingly innocent classroom was slowly becoming a place where fear and manipulation thrived, though no one yet realized the full scope of what was happening. The strange occurrences, the notes, and the children's changed behavior were only the beginning. Unseen and unnoticed by most, these small signs foreshadowed a dark discovery that would soon shake the entire community and reveal that the trusted teacher everyone admired was hiding a horrifying secret. The first real shock came when the school nurse noticed a pattern that could no longer be ignored. Several students arrived with bruises and small injuries that seemed too consistent to be accidental. Some children tried to hide the marks with long sleeves or bandages, and others avoided physical contact altogether. Concerned, the nurse documented the injuries and reported them to school administrators. Pediatricians confirmed that at least some of the injuries were deliberate, sparking a quiet but urgent investigation. Detectives were called in to discreetly look into the situation. They began reviewing classroom footage, interviewing staff, and observing students for signs of stress. What they discovered sent immediate chills through the investigation team. Emily Parker had been keeping meticulous records of every child in her class. Her journals included detailed observations of students' behaviors, routines, and personal habits. Some entries were unsettling, describing private moments in ways that clearly crossed boundaries. What had once seemed like diligence or dedication now looked obsessive and controlling. During a careful search of the classroom and storage areas, authorities uncovered a small collection of items belonging to students, things that had never been reported missing. Personal belongings, small toys, and even notes that had gone unnoticed were hidden away, perfectly organized in ways that reflected Emily's meticulous nature. Each discovery added another layer of horror to the case. Investigators began piecing together a pattern of manipulation, intimidation, and secrecy that suggested Emily's actions were premeditated rather than accidental. Interviews with students revealed subtle but consistent themes. Many described feeling watched or monitored, often in ways that made them anxious. Some admitted to being afraid of disappointing Emily or getting into trouble for minor mistakes. Detectives realized that the children's fear had allowed the behavior to continue unchecked for months, if not longer. It became clear that Emily's public persona, a friendly, caring teacher, was a carefully maintained mask, hiding a calculated manipulation of those she was supposed to protect. The investigation moved quickly, as authorities realized the potential danger of leaving the situation unresolved. Emily Parker's actions, while hidden behind the appearance of normalcy, were deeply troubling and revealed a dark reality that contrasted sharply with the cheerful image she had cultivated for years. The evidence collected so far pointed to deliberate, organized behavior rather than a momentary lapse in judgment. The small town that had trusted her implicitly was on the brink of a shocking revelation, and the full extent of Emily Parker's crimes was only beginning to emerge, threatening to upend the sense of safety and trust that Willow Creek Elementary had long represented. Emily Parker's arrest was carried out quietly, early in the morning, to prevent panic at Willow Creek Elementary. The school remained open, but the news spread rapidly once parents received notifications. Media outlets quickly labeled the case as shocking. A beloved teacher turned criminal, and the town was thrown into disbelief. People struggled to reconcile the image of the cheerful, dedicated educator with the growing evidence of her disturbing behavior. Investigators revealed the full scope of Emily's actions. She had targeted specific students, carefully selecting children who were quieter or more easily intimidated. Her manipulations were calculated. She observed and recorded their routines, learning how to control them without raising suspicion. Hidden in her classroom and storage areas were coded notes, videos, and journals that detailed her actions over months. Each piece of evidence painted a picture of premeditation, suggesting that her obsessive control over the children went far beyond the minor incidents parents had initially noticed. Neighbors and colleagues were stunned. To them, Emily had always been polite, friendly, and professional. She attended community events, volunteered for school functions, and maintained a calm, reassuring presence around parents. Yet, behind this public facade, she spent hours planning and executing a strategy to maintain power over her students. Authorities discovered that her obsession with order and perfection, once considered a harmless quirk, had become a tool for control. The meticulous routines and classroom rules were not just about teaching, they were a method of maintaining dominance over the children. As news of the arrest spread, Parents shared stories of subtle changes they had observed in their children: quiet hesitations, unexplained fear of certain tasks, and anxiety over returning items to Emily's desk. Many realized too late that the signs had been there all along, masked by Emily's friendly demeanor. Counseling and support services were quickly mobilized to help the affected families process the shock and trauma. Emily Parker's actions not only exposed her criminal behavior but also forced the community to confront uncomfortable truths about trust and perception. People began to question how well they could truly know someone, even someone they had admired for years. The investigation continued, uncovering deeper layers of manipulation and control, and setting the stage for a trial that would keep the entire town on edge. By the time the courtroom proceedings began, it was clear that the cheerful teacher everyone had trusted for so long had harbored a darkness that few could have imagined, a darkness that had quietly affected dozens of children and shaken an entire community to its core. The trial of Emily Parker captivated the small town of Willow Creek and drew attention from media across the state. Parents, students, and teachers crowded the courtroom each day, struggling to reconcile the person they knew with the allegations before them. Courtroom observers watched as evidence was presented: journals, videos, and notes that detailed her meticulous control over the students. Each item revealed premeditation, careful observation, and manipulation that left even seasoned investigators disturbed. Psychological experts testified about Emily's obsessive tendencies, manipulative behavior, and compulsive need for control. They explained how her carefully maintained public image allowed her to evade suspicion for so long. While these experts could not excuse her actions, their testimony helped the jury understand how someone seemingly kind and nurturing could engage in behavior so calculated and harmful. Parents in the courtroom wept quietly, some holding their children close as they realized the extent of the betrayal. The prosecution laid out a timeline of her actions, showing that Emily had targeted children over months, creating an environment of fear and silence. Defense attorneys attempted to frame her behavior as eccentric but non-criminal, but the overwhelming evidence proved otherwise. The jury deliberated for hours, aware of the responsibility of deciding the fate of a person who had violated the trust of an entire community. When the verdict was finally announced, Emily Parker was convicted on multiple charges. The courtroom erupted with a mixture of relief, sorrow, and lingering disbelief. For the families involved, the conviction was just the beginning of a long healing process. Counseling programs were implemented for affected students, helping them process trauma and regain a sense of safety. The school district also reviewed its policies, introducing stricter oversight and improved support systems to prevent such incidents in the future. Outside the courtroom, the town struggled to come to terms with what had happened. Neighbors and colleagues reflected on the signs they had missed, wondering how someone so trusted could conceal such darkness. The story of Emily Parker became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that vigilance is necessary even in places we consider safe. In the end, Willow Creek began to rebuild. Trust had been broken, but the community worked to restore it through awareness, support, and transparency. Emily Parker's actions left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder that evil can hide behind the most familiar faces. The cheerful, devoted teacher everyone admired had been unmasked, and the town would never look at Willow Creek Elementary the same way again.